Hello, and welcome to LSET Tech Byte. Today we are creating a simple news app using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Today we'll walk you through the process step by step so you can build your own news application from scratch. Let's dive in. First, let's take a look at the HTML structure of our news app. Here, we have a basic HTML5 document. We start with the doc type HTML declaration, which tells the browser that we're using HTML5. Then, within the HTML tags, we specify the language as English using the lang attribute. Moving on to the head section, we have some meta tags. These tags provide metadata about the document, such as the character encoding and viewport settings for responsive design. The character set attribute specifies the character encoding as UTF-8, ensuring proper handling of text. The viewport meta tag sets the initial scale of the web page to 1, which is essential for mobile responsiveness. Next, we have the title tag, where we set the title of our web page to News App. This is what appears on the browser table. Moving on to the body section, this is where the visible content of our web page goes. At the top, we have a div with the class heading container. Inside this div, we have an h4 tag displaying the title News App. This serves as the header of our application. Below the title, we have another div with the class options container. This is where we can later add any additional options or features for our application. Below the header, we have another div with the class container. This is where we'll dynamically display the news articles fetched from an API using JavaScript. Following that, we link an external style sheet named style.css using the link tag. This style sheet will contain our CSS rules for styling the news app. Finally, we have the footer section, which contains h1 tag displaying the copyright information. It states copyright news app. Towards the end of the body section, we include two JavaScript files, apikey.js and script.js. These files will contain our JavaScript code for fetching news data from an API and dynamically updating the UI of our news app. Let's move on to the CSS part to design our news app. In this video, we will delve into styling our application using CSS. We'll explain each line of the code to ensure you understand how to customize the look and feel of your news app. Starting with the CSS code, the asterisk selector is used to target all elements on the page. Here, we're setting padding and margin to 0, ensuring a consistent layout across different browsers. The box sizing property is set to border box, which includes padding and border in the element's total width and height calculations. Lastly, we specify the font family as System UI for a clean and modern look. Moving on to the body styling, we set the background color to a light gray to provide a pleasant backdrop for our content. For images in our news app, we ensure they fill their container while maintaining their aspect ratio using object fit cover. Now let's focus on styling the header of our application. The heading container class is styled to display as a flex container with items centered horizontally and evenly spaced. We give it some padding, a dark background color of dark gray, and round the corners with border radius 10 pixels. The heading text inside heading container is styled to be white with a font size of 30 pixels. The options container below the header is set to display flex with items wrapping and centered horizontally. We add some spacing between the items using the gap property. Each option within the options container has a white background, dark text color, and rounded borders. On hover, the options change to a dark background with white text and a white border. Moving on to the main content section, we set the container width to 90% and center it horizontally. Inside the container, we use CSS grid to create a responsive layout with 4 columns of equal width and a small gap between them. Each news card is styled with padding, box shadow, margin, and rounded corners for a card-like appearance. Within each news card, the content is arranged in a column layout with space between elements. The title is bold, while the description is styled in a subdued color and justified. The View button at the bottom of each news card has a dark background, white text, and padding for clickable area. Finally, we style the footer with a dark background, centered content, and a copyright notice in white text. Let's move on to the JavaScript part to give our news app its functionality. First, we have variable declarations. We select the container where we'll display the news articles and the options container where users can select different news categories. We also set the default country to UK and define an array of news categories. Next, we define a function called generate_UI, which takes an array of news articles as input. This function dynamically creates HTML elements for each article, including the image, title, description, and a read more link. It handles cases where the image or description might be missing by providing fallback. The getNews function is responsible for fetching news data from the News API. It clears the existing content in the container, then fetches the data from the specified URL. If the response is not successful, it displays an alert to the user. Otherwise, it converts the response to JSON and calls the generate_UI function to display the articles. The select category function is triggered when a user clicks on a news category button. It removes the active class from all category buttons, sets the request URL based on the selected category, adds the active class to the clicked button, and then calls the getNews function to fetch and display news articles of the selected category. The createOptions function dynamically generates buttons for each news category. It loops through the options array and creates a button for each category, setting the active class for the general category by default. Each button triggers the select category function when clicked. The init function initializes the news app by clearing the options container, fetching and displaying news articles, and generating category button. Finally, we set up the window.onload event handler to execute the init function when the page finishes loading. This ensures that the news app is fully functional when the user first accesses it. That's the breakdown of our JavaScript code for the news app. By understanding and customizing this code, you'll be able to create your own fully functional news app. By the end of the video, you can see that the news app is ready. Please like and subscribe to get updates.